Anna, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna, and if you know me, you probably know me as the director of the Genesis Lab at Pepperdine. It's a part of the library. And for anyone who is unfamiliar, so I know some of y'all might not have been to campus, the Genesis Lab is Pepperdine's makerspace and home for emerging technology. We are open to the entire Pepperdine community, and we provide access to a wide range of creative tools. So we have everything from, markers and glue and X-Acto knives on up to virtual reality headsets and 3D printers and computers with 3D modeling software and game development software, all open for everyone. Our mission is to bring the Pepperdine community together by providing a place for all of the members of the community to work together and learn together and create together. So we support academic stuff. We also just support projects to explore the tools for fun. So even though we are, of course, open to all disciplines, I do have to say that Kate and her students are definitely some of our most enthusiastic users and some of the most fun classes to come through the lab. So I am super excited to support the Pepperdine Studio Art Program lecture series in bringing artists here to talk with y'all, and especially those who work with emerging technology. So without further ado, I will pass it on back to Kate.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Anna. Yeah, I guess to my class, a bunch of you have been over to the Genesis Lab, but for those of you who haven't, when we're back in person, definitely get over there because there's a lot of really cool work to see and a bunch of my stuff's over there. And it's just, every time we are able to have a guest artist come over, we try to install their work and then, keep it there archived. So a lot of the folks that we've had, like Paisley Smith has been in there in the past, Gibson Martelli, and a lot of their work is still in the library in the Genesis Lab. So you can try those out at any point. And then hopefully when we're in person, we'll also be able to bring Zeynep back so we can see some of her work too. All right, let's introduce Zeynep. Everybody, this is Zeynep. Zeynep's an artist and curator from Istanbul, Turkey. She studied film and interactive media at Emerson College, later getting her start at LACMA's Art and Tech Lab, creating AR installations. She then worked at the Sundance Film Festival, New Frontier exhibitions, and is currently an MFA candidate at UCLA's Design Media Arts program. She primarily works with archive photography, video, and immersive media. Her subjects revolve around identity, history, and loss of memory. She is deeply influenced by Istanbul's city culture and in pursuit of exploring shifting identities to navigate the struggle and alienation that arise from changing environments. Actually, I guess part of that, you're not at UCLA anymore, huh?
Yeah, I actually just graduated in December, so I should probably update that bio.
All good, all good.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Yeah, Zeynep and I think we first met actually at Sundance, I think, because Ben had his irrational exuberance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and then we just know each other through the VR community and like VR Scout and all that fun stuff. So yeah, super thrilled to have you with us.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here, and I'm really happy to be able to do a workshop in AR. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and so it's exciting to be able to show some tools. And by the end of this workshop, all of you guys will have like a working filter that you can, share with each other. And yeah, I guess it's funny, like kind of introducing myself right after the bio, but yeah, it's I've been working with immersive media since I graduated college back in like 2015. And so I've been doing a lot of sort of like artworks using augmented reality, whether it be like doing citywide AR scavenger hunts or like, working on smaller installations. And then I worked for a while a lot with like curating art shows and immersive media, which is how me and Kate sort of like kept in touch throughout all these years, working within like the small community of people who make art in XR. But it's like exciting to kind of grow that community and, teach people how it can become more accessible and easy. And that's sort of the beauty of this technology, is that every year I feel like it's becoming easier for more people to sort of make stuff with it. And yeah, so today we're basically going to be learning how to make AR filters using Lens Studio. And I'm going to mainly focus on creating works with 3D objects. And I think most of you, from what I understand, have a some sort of 3D export that we can use today. And if you don't, I'm just gonna, in the chat, quickly link Google Poly, which has free downloadable 3D stuff that you can find, just in case, you know, you don't have one. And there are also like small enough files to work with Lens Studio. And what we'll also do is I'm gonna quickly do a short lecture, just kind of going over the history of AR so you guys get a better understanding of like where the technology was and where it's at now. And today we're obviously going to focus more on mobile augmented reality, even though now there's a lot of head-mounted displays out there that have a lot more sort of immersive experiences where they bring these like virtual entities into your space. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and then please feel free to write any questions you have in the chat as I'm speaking. I'll try to check it, because I'd hate for this to be just like me talking for about an hour and a half. I'd love for this to be more engaging. And then once we actually start doing the workshop on Lens Studio, we'll be doing it together. So any questions or any errors you run into, you can ask on the spot. All right. So let's see. All right, you guys can see my screen?
Yep, looks good.
Cool. So augmented reality. As I mentioned to you guys, we're pretty much gonna go over what AR really is, a little bit about its history, and today I'm gonna talk a little bit more about virtual reality and immersive media in general as well, since they're so connected to each other. We'll go over different sort of uses of mobile AR, and then talk a little bit about headset AR, and then get to our workshop. So it's interesting because even today, there's a lot of people I feel whenever, you know, I start talking about AR, or I'm like, oh, that's what I do. It's common when people don't really understand what it is. And it's always interesting to try to explain what it is if there's someone who has like no idea of like what they've never kind of like heard about it. So AR is pretty much when you bring any kind of virtual object or entity into our space, into our reality. So it's a matter of bringing any digital asset, whether it be an image, it could be sound, it could be video, it could be any 3D object that we can see in our space through a head-mounted display, or through your phone's camera, which is probably the most common use of it. All right. And whenever I'm like talking about anything to do with immersive media, I really like to kind of look into how humans have always been sort of obsessed with the nature of reality. And I think Plato's allegory of the cave is something really interesting to look at if you're ever interested in looking a bit more on the philosophy side of technologies, or, you know, how they came to be. And this is pretty much about these prisoners who've been bound within a cave in which they've been chained to their entire lives. And these people watch these shadows that are projected on the walls from objects passing in front of the fire behind them. And eventually they end up giving names to these shadows and characters and personalities to them. And the shadows sort of become the prisoner's reality. And like the fire that's cast light on the walls of the cave, you can sort of consider how the human condition is forever bound to the impressions that we receive through our senses. And I think it's like a very interesting way of thinking how artists and creators work with something like virtual reality or augmented reality, because we're sort of constantly obsessed with altering our reality in a way, or adding on to it and creating new perspectives and meanings and understandings of our life. And slowly jumping into sort of the way we've seen people who work in the creative industries play and alter what our perceptions. I'm jumping into the 1500s. And this is pretty much I'm going to butcher this name. I'm sorry if there's anyone who knows how to pronounce it. Probably it's Salle de la Perspective. And it's basically this architect Peruzzi who designed these, this room where you pretty much have these veined marble piers and columns with like gilded capitals that they like incorporate the actual veined marble door frames into the room. And it sort of creates this illusion where the frescoed architecture is so like precisely painted that it's almost impossible to distinguish what's real and where the marble ends and begins. And we've seen sort of examples of these kinds of architectural creations that sort of play with the human perception all the time. And I feel like it's kind of a interesting example to look of how we've been, in a sense, augmenting our reality in a non-digital way with architecture. I'm quickly gonna look at our chat to make sure. Oh, are the slides not showing?
Sorry, I was on mute. I just see the intro, the 1, 2, 3, and 4, the content.
Oh, hold on. Did it not change at all when I was talking? Oh, no.
Oh, there we go. I see Plato's Allegory of the Cave now. Okay.
Okay.
Cool.
So I hope what the story, as I was saying, I hope that made more sense looking at the image now. It was changing on my side too. So do you see this change?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. You can see this too? Cool. All right, and I'm jumping into the 50s now, and I want to talk a little bit about the Sensorama, which was created by Morton Heilig, who's like, now I feel like he'd be considered like a multimedia specialist, I guess. His writings are also pretty amazing if you ever want to look into sort of history of cinema and how he was trying to create a way more immersive manner of watching movies. And basically the Sensorama was something you stick your head into, and it would emit odors, and it had a fan in it, and it would basically try to encompass all these other senses that you had that would sort of put you in this very immersed space within what you were watching. And I think it's like a really interesting early example of immersive media in general. And of course, you have the first sort of head-mounted display that's considered to be invented by Ivan Sutherland. It's called the Sword of Damocles. And you can see sort of a picture of it here. It was this really, really heavy headset that was like dangled down from the ceiling. And when the person like put their head inside of it, they couldn't really move it. They kind of had to be stuck into it, but they were able to see these sort of virtual things appear in front of them in their space. And the name of this, I think, is also really interesting, the Sword of Damocles, because it's part of this story. And you can sort of see a picture of that here. And the way it basically goes is there was a court courtier called Damocles who visited his king Dionysus, and he was basically saying, oh, like, you're so fortunate, you have so much power, authority, you're like surrounded by all this magnificence. And Dionysus basically said, okay, if you really think so, you're free to basically sit on my throne for a day. And Dionysus, Damocles obviously is like, that's amazing, I'll do it. He sits on the throne, and then he realizes that there's a sword dangling down on top of the throne, and it's held by one single string of horsetail hair. And it's basically this sort of illusion into how there's this imminent and ever-present peril faced by those in positions of power. And I think it's just like an interesting sort of name to give to the first head-mounted like display that was ever invented, because in a sense, when you think about it, with virtual reality or augmented reality, it has so much power and influence over how we perceive the world that as like artists and creators who work in it, we sort of have to always think of the technology in a critical manner to make sure that it's either being used for good, or at least it's being introduced to humanity in a healthy way. which is sort of a responsibility I always think of working with, different emerging technologies since I decided to become an artist and work with curation. Just want to make sure the slides are changing for you guys. All right. And then jumping into the 70s and 80s, obviously there was this huge boom of VFX and video games that also, started a lot of, different creators and artists starting to create things with technologies since it started to become more accessible. And with those huge leaps in computer science, obviously this started really pushing immersive media forward as well. And you can also say that holograms can be considered some sort of mixed or augmented reality in a sense. And into the 80s and 90s, virtual reality and AR and XR in general started sort of becoming a very mainstream topic and started becoming like pretty big on pop culture. And Neil Stephenson, who wrote Snow Crash, he's actually the chief futurist of Magic Leap, which is pretty much the most famous headset, AR headset right now within the industry. And into like early 2000s, it pretty much went back into the labs, and a lot of the sort of advancements we've had in this industry, we owe it to all these labs and universities, whether it be USC pushing forward these experiments they made with VR to help soldiers who have PTSD. There was also University of Washington who worked a lot with augmented reality to cure phobias like arachnophobia. And then there's also like the virtual human interaction lab at Stanford University. So it pretty much was part of like the academic research scientist world for a while until into like 2014-15 when Oculus was established, which pretty much the founder, Palmer Luckey, was like an intern at USC, by the way. He sort of established Oculus, and that sort of started this like third huge wave of VR, where you had all these companies starting to create headsets, and then it becoming more accessible. You had all kinds of developers, artists, creators starting to like jump back into technology and start making stuff with it. And of course, the introduction of smartphones back in like I think it was 2007. That was a total game changer because mainly just looking at augmented reality, it became like a very easy, accessible technology to experience because you no longer needed these really expensive headsets that were only maybe reachable in the university, or you didn't necessarily need like $1,000 computers to be able to use them. And with the introduction of smartphones, mobile AR sort of started to become something that was a lot more widely used, even though it started obviously coming in after 2010s at least. And to talk a little bit about mobile AR, I need to like mention Pokemon Go because, as I mentioned, like if I'm ever talking about AR to someone I know who's never heard of it, usually I'll always say, have you seen Pokemon Go or have you tried it? Because it's probably the most mainstream known pop culture like example of it. And you think about Pokemon Go that I also think is really, really interesting is not only was it, one experience that really like popularized the technology, but also it was so credible enough, like credible in the sense that people believed that these virtual creatures existed in our space, so much so that they started really exploring their cities and neighborhoods. And that's sort of the level of immersion and presence that any person who's creating something in AR wants to go for, wants to successfully get to, is to be able to affect your choice and perspective of how this virtual object is actually there and you want to interact with it. And then we've started seeing a lot of artists working with mobile AR, and a lot of these experiences in the early days were sort of image tracked. So you would have some sort of QR code or marker image. And once you looked at it through your phone's camera, it sort of like came to life. And I'm still seeing so many examples of this all the time. Even this artist called Sutu started creating tattoos with it, which I thought was pretty amazing. And today we're basically going to be focusing on Snapchat and Lens Studio. And Snap, in a sense, I think was a super important player when it comes to mobile AR in particular, because they made it also, you know, something that's very popular within our culture, where it became so common that you would see everyone using it all the time. But also the fact that they released Lens Studio, which is like an open source free software, where it's so easy to use that you don't necessarily need a background in animation or game design or anything like that. It just becomes, it makes it a lot more easier and accessible for people to be able to create with it. And I keep using the word accessible because I think it's the most important thing for immersive media to continue to be present in our pop culture, is for it to become easier for people to use, because many people still don't own VR headsets, obviously, or own a computer that would be able to support it. Or if the more like much more expensive headsets that are made for mixed reality is obviously something a lot of people also don't own. So it's very important, I think, to make it something as easy and accessible as like something you can reach from your cell phone. And to, you know, further talk about presence and immersion, and I mentioned this with Pokemon Go, it's just, people talk a lot about this in virtual reality, where you want to create a total sense of immersion where people almost forget that they're in this different virtual world. And the same things could sort of translate to augmented reality, but what we're trying to immerse people in is believing that those virtual objects in their space actually belong there, and it's not just some flat floating digital entity that doesn't really create a connection with us or our space. So whenever you're sort of making something for AR, it's always kind of important to think of how it's going to connect with the space that it's going to be existing in. So nowadays, with technology going even further, we're seeing AR works that can actually map onto the different surfaces and objects in your room, because our phone cameras are getting better. So they're able to sort of detect what's in the space or detect the lighting conditions. So they have better, more accurate looking shadows, for example, which is another thing. It's so minute and detailed, but even having a shadow for that 3D object that's there creates a better sense of presence, that it's actually there and it's not just like this flat thing, you know, which will kind of, I'll show you guys how to do that stuff on Lens Studio as well. But it's a matter of just making whatever sort of filter that you're creating or object that you're bringing into there is to create some sort of connection with it, with you, with the people around you, but also with like the space particularly. And just kind of like talking a bit about headset AR, or they call it mixed reality nowadays, and some people also call it XR. But there's two main headsets that are most popular. It's Microsoft HoloLens, and then there's another one called Magic Leap. And what I've been able to do, maybe 2 to 3 experiences with these headsets, because you can only pretty much do it in maybe like an art show or some festival where they have the experience going. And what the most successful thing I've been able to see with them is, first off, they have like this incredible power to map out a whole room and its objects, and basically overlay this virtual world on top of it. And so it's amazing when it comes to sort of narrative experiences or animations or interactive games that you can play within a space. An example that I did was basically this fox that I met in a room, and I helped this fox find these broken pieces of the moon, where I was just basically going in about in an empty room where, from my perspective, I was in this like beautiful, colorful Arctic world with the fox. and it completely like had this incredible, powerful immersion. However, the other thing to mention is these technologies are still pretty new. So the level of like field of eye that you're able to see is pretty small. So I feel like they still have a long ways to go, but there's definitely the future of immersive media is going to be these head-mounted displays that are able to sort of really like blend the virtual world with our world. And yeah, so let's get to the actual workshop. But I just wanted to do like a really quick short lecture, just going over the history so you guys get a better idea of like what we're about to make, and just to give you a very slight description of like the kinds of things that we're trying to go for whenever you're working with immersive media. Like the words presence and immersion really do matter a lot. So some things to have prepared is make sure you have your phone charged and with you, and you have Snapchat downloaded onto it, and you have an account. The other thing you want to make sure is have Lens Studio downloaded onto your computer. I can put the link on the chat if you haven't already. It doesn't take that long, and it also works on, I mean, I just have like a very basic MacBook, and it easily works on my computer. So don't worry about needing something heavy. It works on both PC and Apple. And the last thing is make sure you have a 3D model or a few 3D models that you can work with. It can either be an FBX or an OBJ. And if you don't have one already, you could just download one from Sketchfab or Google Poly, whatever works best for you. All right. I'm going to share my screen again. Did you guys have any questions? I know I went over really, really fast over a lot of information, but
I had a quick question.
Go for it.
So for the application we're going to use, we're doing it on our cell phones, or can we use our computer to make it?
Oh, Lens Studio is on your computer.
Okay, great.
But you're going to need your cell phone to be able to see it later.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we're going to be working on creating the filter on your computer and then sending it to your Snapchat. And then you're going to get to see it from your cell phone. And you can actually then share the filter with anyone you want, and they can see it too. So if everyone has Lens Studio downloaded, and I'll share my screen here. Just quickly click on it to launch it. All right. So just to kind of go over some basic layout of the software, navigation, and what the templates mean. This is pretty much the homepage that comes up when you launch it. And you can kind of see here, you have a selection for all the different templates. And the templates are pretty much, they're these ready-made project files for whatever kind of filter you're trying to create. And it just makes it really, really easy to learn to make all these different kinds of experiences, whether it be like tracking things on your body or something on an image, or working with like GIFs if you want to, or face filters. It's something that I actually ended up using a lot when I was first learning, because these templates automatically have everything in place, and all you need to really do is change like the assets according to what you want and customize it. So it's like, has nothing to do with cheating or anything. Like Lens Studio specifically has these for beginners so that people can learn. And say like you want to pick one of the templates, you can click on learn more, and it'll give you a level of how complex it is, so you can get an idea of whether or not you want to try it. And today we're going to start from scratch, from like a blank brand new project, but for future purposes, just keep in mind, these templates are pretty amazing when you're just starting to learn to make stuff with it. And the other thing we quickly want to do is up here, I already have my Lens Studio linked to my Snapchat account. So if you can quickly do that for yours so that it'll just make it a lot easier when you're going to publish your lens later. It'll also make it easier when you're just trying to test it out. So just make sure on this upper right corner, when you click on it, I think it's supposed to give you like a little QR code that you'll scan with your Snapchat account, and then it automatically should connect it. If not, I think it might just ask you to log in. And again, with any questions, just either speak up or put it on chat in case I'm going too fast. This section right here under documentation, it pretty much just takes you to like written down tutorials. Lens Studio also has like a really amazing YouTube channel where they have all kinds of like tutorials for all these templates that they've created for you to learn. There's also tons and tons and tons of artists and creators who have put up YouTube videos doing different stuff using Lens Studio. So you can really create like a super custom experience if you want to. The only downside of this is that you are using a third-party app, obviously, and it has to go through Snapchat. And it's not like your own, you know, AR app that you get to publish. So the first thing we'll do is just click on New Project. And if you can, again, like if you can or prefer to follow me as I'm doing this, I'll go slowly so we can do it all together. But if you prefer to just take notes and watch, that's also okay. I just feel like it's always, when you're first learning the software, it's better to follow as I'm going in case you run into any questions or errors, I can just help you. So we're all in this together. So you can see that I'm on camera right now. This is because we're gonna go over each box here, but this is pretty much the preview box. As you're creating your lens, you'll get to preview it on your face if you want to, or you can just have a ready-made person that they already have there to test this out. But if you've ever used a 3D software before, the layout should be fairly familiar to you. I'm just gonna start on this side. So first things first is how you have this bottom one called resources. So resources is pretty much where you'll be importing any of your digital assets to. So your 3D model, any images, sound, whatever you want in this filter, you pretty much just put it into resources first. And then up here, you have your objects. So whatever you place here is what's actually going to appear in front of your phone's camera. So you can think of resources as kind of like the ingredients, and then like the objects is like the meal, where like you will be able to sort of, you'll probably be using these two the most, to be honest. And if you click, say, just on camera, and by default, it comes with a camera and like a very basic lighting system. You'll see that the inspector tab, you'll have a little menu that comes up. And this inspector tab, it's gonna change depending on what you have selected. Okay, so the inspector tab is pretty much where you can alter, you know, the position, rotation, scale of whatever you have selected there, and then different kinds of customizations depending on what you have selected. The other thing that's nice is you can add components right here. So this is if you want to add a script to make it more interactive, if you wanted to add any kind of extra tracking, and we'll go over this as, you know, we're creating our first filter, but it's just to give you guys an idea. And then last, you have your preview. So again, as I mentioned before, this is meant to give you a preview of what your filter will look like. If you just click over here, or sorry, in this middle space, you can actually change the sort of preview people you have. You can also change it to a body in case you're making something that's body tracked. You can change it to a cat if you're making an animal filter. If you're making something, say, with like hand gestures, These are all preloaded in there. What's also nice is that you can actually upload your own image if you wanted to from your files, in case you had a very specific sort of joint gesture that you wanted to have in there. The other thing that's also nice is you can click on this little icon and it'll actually give you videos. So say you have a filter that's going to be triggered by raising eyebrows, or maybe you'll have it with someone smiling. You can have it with something skeletal. So it gives you a better idea of how that object is going to move. So it makes it a little easier. And the other thing that's also nice is if you look at this little arrow, it actually allows you to use your front or back camera of your phone. So say you're not actually going to have it tracked onto a body part, it's not a face filter, it's just something you want it to exist within the world. So then you can just click on that and then it'll give you different sorts of backgrounds. And again, you can upload your own file here to really see how your filter is going to look in any specific space you want. And for the sake of the first part of this tutorial, I'm just going to keep it in this brick background, because the first thing we're going to do here is just to bring an object into a surface in our room where we're not going to track it to the body part yet. So if you can, just have your background as any kind of back camera option that it gives you. And to quickly go over, you just click on this and then you click here and select. All right, are you guys with me? Cool. So the first thing we're gonna do now is I'm gonna go down to resources and I'm gonna quickly right click and say add new. And then here I'm gonna say from files. So I'm going to add my 3D objects. So I have a little FBX file here that I'm just gonna add. And then I also have an OBJ that I'm going to add in case some of you guys have OBJs. I'll show you how to work with that too. Let's see. Which one was it? So I'm trying to think. Okay, I think it was this one. Yes. So for your OBJs, you'll have your little OBJ file here. You also want to make sure to bring in your texture file. If not, we can also just color, if it's a very basic shape, we can color it inside Lens Studio as well. But if you have a texture file, you have to bring it in separately. And a really quick difference between FBX and OBJ is FBX files are really good for any kind of small animated 3D object. It kind of comes all in one file with the texture and everything. OBJ, it basically comes with without the material or animation sort of attached to it. FBX makes it a little bit more easier, but totally depends on your preference. So under resources, now I have my files right here. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to be working on creating a world object where I just want Lens Studio to create a filter where it'll detect a surface, whether it be my table or my floor, and just bring in the object there. So when I click, I'm just going to click on camera. Okay. And then on my inspector tab, I'm saying add component. And on search, I'm just going to type device, and you'll see it says device tracking right here. And I'm just going to click on that and it appears right here. Okay. And on tracking mode, you want to make sure to have surface selected. And I'm also going to select use native AR. It just makes the tracking a little bit better on my phone. All right. And again, if you need me to go over that again, just tell me. And then
oh.
Yeah, if I need to go over it twice, it's no problem, guys. Sure thing. So I'm just gonna click on camera on your objects tab, okay? And then make sure on inspector you have camera open. And I just say add component in the bottom. And you're gonna search for device tracking right there. And when you click on it, it should just appear right here. So this is just a component I'm adding to the camera. So it'll enable my phone camera to be able to detect surfaces. And then in tracking mode, just make sure you have surface selected. And this use native AR, whether you have it selected or not, it's not gonna, it'll still detect the surfaces. I just think when I have use native AR on, the tracking is better. All right. So the next thing we're doing, again, under objects, I'm just gonna click this little plus sign. So when you click here, you'll see you have tons of different selections. So this is pretty much enabling you to add any kind of tracking devices. So you can add, these are all the different kinds of trackings you can have for where your AR, like where that object is going to appear. You can have like marker tracking, which just basically enables the object to appear on top of an image. Location tracking, so it's very limited right now to only these locations. If any of you live near one of these buildings, please try it because I'm actually really interested to see how it looks, but you can basically map a whole virtual thing on top of these buildings, according to Snapchat. You have like helper scripts, which are ready-made scripts you can add for interactivity. You can add a camera, light, you can add image objects, text, audio. So this is like whatever you want your filter to be. This pretty much enables you to do that. You can add very basic shapes, face meshes, it's a whole thing. And they keep adding more to this every month. Their team is like very hardworking. So that's this little plus sign right here. So what we're going to add today is under helper scripts, world object controller. You can always search it up here as well, but this is what we're going to be adding, world object controller. So I just clicked on it. You can see it appeared on my resources. It's also going to appear within my objects right there. So this is pretty much just a script. And you can see this random fox appeared. It's Lens Studio, one of Lens Studio's like ready-made objects that they really like using. But you can see that now there's this fox that's dancing in this space. So the world object controller is pretty much just a script that lets you detect and place 3D objects within surfaces in your space. And you can also see here next to the red panda, it says replace me. So that means that's where you're putting your FBX or OBJ file that you have. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna right click here on the red panda and I'm just gonna delete it, okay? And then I'm gonna go down into my resource tab and I'm going to select the 3D file that I already had brought in here. So bring in whatever 3D file you're using. And you select it and basically drag and drop it under World Object Controller. I'm gonna do that one more time, just to show you guys. Under my resources, I'm just selecting my file and I'm dragging it and dropping it under World Object Controller. And you can see there's little tabs here. So you're basically parenting it under. Okay, so that little gray line, this should be a part of it. Any problems so far? Are you guys good?
How's everybody doing?
Okay. Yeah. And let's see. You can see there's a tiny, tiny little flower over there. So I'm just gonna have the red flower selected. And on scale, I'm just gonna scale it up. You can either do it from here, or if you look here on these tabs, and if you hover over them, it'll actually tell you what it is. It's pretty much lets you manipulate the object that's in your scene. You can rotate it, move it, scale it. So I'm just gonna scale it up, and I want to make it big enough so everyone can see it.
I have a question.
Go for it.
I somehow lost you when you put the red flower under World Object Controller. How did you do that again? I missed that.
No worries. So when you have your file selected here, you're either LBJ or FBX, you just click on it and you drag it and drop it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
You can also just click this plus sign, and then well, actually, wait, I don't think it lets you directly. Yeah, you can do control click and say import object. And then you can also bring it in from here, which will automatically add it to your resources. But whatever is easiest for you.
Okay, thank you.
Drag and drop. And you just want to make sure that it's parented under World Object Controller. So here's Emma saying, I'll find my OBJs, but it's not recognizing them. What's the error message that it's giving you?
Hi, so I got it. It wasn't finding it, and then I found it.
Okay, cool.
And I am kind of where you're at, where I'm dropping the OBJ into the resource packets. And it's not quite showing up.
So, so it's just not allowing you to import it in?
The file's imported because it's a hat I made on Dimension or Blender. It's an OBJ. I put it on the file resources, and it's not showing up on the grid where your flower is. Okay, so once you have it there, you want to make sure to have it in your objects panel as well. Because anything that in your scene, it's going to show up with whatever file is here over here. Oh, so it has to be in two places, the top and the bottom? Oh,
yeah, exactly. So your resources are pretty much, that's why I like to describe the resources as kind of like a list of like the ingredients you have for this filter. And then anything that's going to show up in front of the camera, it needs to be under this objects panel.
Okay.
So this is kind of like just your file resource place where you're, you can take in and out whatever sort of digital asset that you're using. So what you want to do is just select the mesh and drag and drop it under your World Object Controller. And the other thing to mention, guys, is with OBJ specifically and FBX also, you want to make sure to select like the actual mesh file. But yeah, is everyone seeing their object within their scene? If you're not, sometimes you also need to play with like the scale. So once you have it selected, change your scale around, or you can also just do it from over here, these top panels. And when you're switching these out, again, it just lets you sort of alter it within your scene. I'm just very used to working with the numbers here because it helps me be a lot more precise with whatever I'm doing. But yeah, is everyone seeing their 3D object in their scene?
I'm still not. I have the OBJ under objects and resources.
Okay.
I found the mesh under resources under the OBJ.
Okay.
And I clicked on it and it just says sphere.
Okay.
And that's it. It's a number 0. And then there's a number 0 under objects next to the sphere. Under resources, it says sphere, but nothing else.
Okay. And is it under world object controller or is it just?
Yes.
All right. So it's possible that you might need to scale it up to see it. Mm-hmm. Which is pretty much.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's a very tiny little thing. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That happens to me a lot too. Where like, especially if I'm working with Unity and I'm like transferring 3D files between Blender or Unity or Maya, and I'll just be like, where is this? Where is it? I can't see it. And it's just like very tiny, or sometimes it's just huge. But yeah, matter of just playing with the scale sometimes. All right. So next thing we're gonna do is, let's actually, hold on. So you guys can see it here in my preview, right? I have this little flower going. For those of you who might have something animated, it's just a really quick trick I want to show. Once you have your file selected here and you have this little animation mixer, I'm actually just gonna change the post infinity to oscillate, just so that the animation sort of goes back and forth instead of that little cut. Just like a little detail. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is I just wanna add a slight shadow. So when I open the FBX, these are all the little shapes that I have in there. Yours is probably a lot cleaner. And I'm just gonna select the one poly surface. And in the inspector tab, you have this little shadow mode. And I'm just gonna make that caster, okay? And you can see I don't have a shadow that appeared when I did that, right? So I'm just gonna go up to my lighting. You just need to open it up and click on light. And just make sure that I have shadows selected. Now I have a little shadow, which adds some sort of presence to my object. Okay, and that's pretty much it on creating just your object that's going to be recognized on your surface. The next move is going up over here where it says send lens to device. So I'm just going to open Snapchat on my phone. And I'm just going to click send lens to device. And again, I already have my Lens Studio connected with my Snapchat account. So it automatically sends it to my phone. You might just need to do that while you're sending it. I'm just waiting for it to appear. And while I'm doing this, if you guys have any questions or whatever step you're at, I can help you.
Olivia, were you able to find the position and rotation option?
Yeah, I'm like messing around with
Oh.
that, but like it's not moving my object except for like the scale I can change, but I don't know, it's just like facing backwards. So I don't know.
Okay, hold on. I'll be with you shortly, but I just want to show you guys. So I was able to bring the flower onto my desk just now. You can kind of see. But yeah, let's work through whatever error messages that you guys have right now, so that you can at least bring this object onto the surface in your room. So was anyone able to publish it yet or no? So where are you guys at? Can you see your 3D object in your scene?
I can see it. I have to zoom in a lot, but it's a very, very tiny little hat.
Okay, so you can just, if you click on your object under the objects panel.
Let's see. Yeah.
And then next to, in your inspector tab, you'll see scale.
Yeah.
So just, I just put 10 there, but put like any number, usually something between 10 to 20 should be fine. And make sure you have all three of them the same. Okay. And then it'll automatically, like it'll just make it bigger faster.
Yeah, it's pretty big now.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is it supposed to be I don't know how to explain this. You know the camera icon on the platform?
Mm-hmm.
It's going through the middle, like they're emerging like this.
So you can if you just click on the move tool, that's right here, you can actually move your object back and forth, and it's good to kind of have it away from the camera a little bit.
Where is the move tool?
Right up here.
Okay, 1 second, I'm not seeing something. Oh, I see, okay. And I just move it away, basically.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, the chat wasn't appearing. I'm so sorry. I thought nobody was answering on chat each time I asked. All right, let's see. So Olivia, just to rotate it again, just have your object selected. And then up here, you have this little circle arrow. That's the rotation tool. And the other thing is, for those of you working off of your laptops, and if you're working with like a trackpad, this little cube right here will help you look all around your object, as you can see. So you can rotate so that it's facing whichever way you want it to face, like that. Yeah, I can show the shadow again. It's not necessary. It's just something I really like to add. I don't know, shadows make a huge difference. So first things first, just under lighting, make sure you have this little light selected right here. And then in your inspector panel under light source, just make sure you have shadows selected. And you can play around with what the shadow looks like, the shadow density or the blur radius. And then the other thing you need to make sure is have your mesh selected. And then the shadow mode should be caster under your inspector panel. All right, so has anyone been successful at publishing their lens, send lens to device up here?
For me, it says that it's sent, but I'm not 100%. Oh wait, never mind, it just popped up. Never mind.
So all you need to do is make sure there's like a surface that your phone is scanning. So either your table or the floor, and you should be able to pinch and make it bigger according to whatever you want. So I'm seeing some smiles. I'm hoping that means that you guys have it.
I got mine to work after realizing I couldn't remember my Snapchat password.
Yeah, that happened to me too.
All of that. Yeah, I got mine to work. This is fun. How's everybody else?
Super, super simple, this first step. And to be honest with you, the other, I'm going to show you guys how to track it onto body parts. I think that's easier than this one. It's just that this is the most basic form of AR that I just really wanted you guys to see. The actually tracking it onto like your face or your shoulders, it's a lot faster. You'll see in a second.
Wait, so how do you publish it? Oh, just kidding. I just see the button right now.
Yeah.
Also, how do we color it?
Like yeah, I'll show you. So yeah, that's what I'll show you now with your material. So I use an FBX file, so it already had the texture in there. But say I want to use the OBJ. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring in my OBJ file. Oh, is that it? No. Hold on. Just making this bigger for now, just to show it to you guys. Okay, so I have this OBJ right here. And obviously it's not colored nicely or anything, right? When you have it selected, why is it not selected? There you go. When you have the mesh selected in Inspector, you'll see it says material right there, right? And within your resources, under the folder of your OBJ, you should have a little materials folder. Do you have that? If not, we can create it too, it's no problem. So I'm just gonna click on that little, like that purplish little circle. This is your material. And under base texture, you see there's nothing selected right here. So if you have a texture file, what you pretty much need to do is just click on this little box and then click on your texture file. And then as you can see, it just added my texture file onto my OBJ. If you just want to add a color, you just go into this little thing that says base color and pick something. And it'll automatically just add any color that you want if you're not using a texture file. So again, this is under your OBJ file, material, and your material might be called something totally different. Mine is the name of like the flower. And then you'll see your materials here. Okay, I'm turning on chat. Yeah, what Kate is saying about materials, it's like a whole other thing on its own for 3D. But yeah, it's if you don't have a material, you can just add any color you want. But also something to say about Snapchat's material editor, which I think it's really impressive, is you can add all these different effects onto your model. So you can have it be shiny or metallic, and add like all kinds of like effects. You can also, usually 3D files will have a variety of different texture files that you add onto it to create like a, well, basically to create texture, not to create like something that doesn't look like you just slapped on an image file on it. So the further you get when you're learning more about 3D, this is just something to consider. All right, so does everybody have a, were you guys able to see your lens through Snapchat?
When I go to like publish lens, it says that my lens size exceeds maximum allowed size.
All right, so that's something else to mention. If you look up here, so my lens, you want to keep it under 4 megabytes. So it's possible that your object might have just been too big. So you either just need to export it with less triangles, or if you don't have time for that now, you could just download one of the random 3D objects from Google Poly that we linked in the chat earlier, because all of those are really, really tiny. So this is like one other downside to Lens Studio, is that they do give you a limit on the size of your lens. The other thing you can do, by the way, is under File, it says Optimize Project. And this sort of makes some of your files a little smaller. But yeah, you'll see up here, it'll tell you whether or not it's too big. Also, the other thing is when I'm clicking send lens to device, it's only just sending that specific filter to my phone. But if you actually want to have it be published and be out in public where people can find it, you go File, Publish Lens, and then you title it. You can put like special images on it. And there's people who like make these filters professionally, like artists who just make filters and release them and then market them. And so then you can actually like share it with your friends if you don't want to just keep it on your phone. And we'll go over it, like this is super simple. I'll go over it after I show you guys a few of the other tracking tools. But okay, do you think we're in a good spot to look at other ways of tracking these objects, or do you guys did you guys have any other questions about the surface one?
How are y'all doing? Okay, cool.
I swear I keep losing the chat because I put it behind the other windows and then it doesn't appear. Okay, here.
I think we're okay. I saw some thumbs up. I don't see any other questions.
All right. So let's do some other kinds of tracking. So what I quickly want you guys to do is just right click on world object and delete it, or you can just unselect it so that it doesn't get in the way of the other trackings we're going to do. If you want to just like save the work, just uncheck this little box and it'll just be invisible in your scene. And I'm actually going to delete this flower for now as well. All right. And the other thing I'm also going to do is click on your camera. And under inspector, I'm going to uncheck device tracking. Again, you click on your camera. Under in the inspector tab, just uncheck device tracking. I'm doing this because I'm going to use another tool to track now, and I don't want this to get in the way because I'm no longer tracking surfaces. Okay. And then I'm going to click this little plus sign. And I'm actually going to go into, just going to type in head and find head binding. So you click on the plus sign and then find head binding right here. And you can put little favorite signs next to some of the tracking tools that you really like so that it comes up easier for you. Okay, so I'm just going to click on that. And it should appear within your objects panel. And you'll see, I'm just gonna zoom in, a little head appeared in front of the camera. And since I'm going to be using something that's going to be tracked onto my head now, I'm actually going to switch the preview to this middle circle one, which switches to my webcam. So any filter that I'm adding, I can test it on my face directly, or if you don't want to, you can also always, hold on, it's getting in the way. You can go back to picking a person from here as well. And the way you do that is by clicking this middle one here. And then just, if it's set up for the back camera, you can switch it around like this, just to remind you guys. Okay. And so does everyone have head binding within their objects panel? Yeah? Okay. So the next thing I'm gonna do, again, this is, as I mentioned, a lot easier than the previous ones. I'm just gonna go into my resources, select my 3D model, and I'm just gonna drag it and I'm going to drop it under head binding. Okay. And again, you wanna make sure that it's parented under there, as you can see. So again, all you do is select your 3D model, drag and drop. So for me, it didn't appear. And the reason why it's not because it's not there, it's because it's not placed correctly. So I'm just gonna select the 3D model in my objects panel, and I'm just gonna move it. You see how it was just behind my face? And you'll see wherever I leave it, that's where it's going to track. So I just wanna make sure I wanna place it where I want it to be. And you can either do it by watching the preview, the preview window here, or if you want to work purely from your scene, you can also just watch where it's placed on the face over there. But I just like working with the preview, and I like using my webcam because it just makes it easier to where I exactly want it. So do you guys see your 3D model on your face or the example picture? I can go over those steps once again if I'm moving too fast.
How's everybody doing? Oh, got a question. How do we preview on our webcam?
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
So,
okay, cool.
Just to show that again, right here, it's this little circle in the middle. You guys can see my mouse, right? Yeah, it's right there. Does that work?
I am just not seeing something.
Okay, so it's probably because your object is just not placed correctly, because I didn't see mine either. So what you want to do is just play around with where the object is in your scene. And
I meant, sorry, not the object. I meant the circle you were talking about to get the preview.
Oh, so this little thing doesn't exist under your preview tab?
Let me double check.
I wish I can't zoom sadly while I'm sharing my screen, but
Webcam preview. It's all black. I pressed on it.
So it's probably just not detecting your camera, which is okay, because that's like the good thing about Lens Studio is that you can just click on this one and you'll have like a photo of someone where the filter will also appear if you can't use your webcam.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it's okay if you can't use it. I just like it because I like to see how the object is moving with me. But does everyone else have, how do you get to head binding? So under your objects panel, this little plus sign right there. So you click on that. And then you just type in head binding. Did you find it now, Olivia?
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. See, it would usually, obviously, when we're doing tutorials like this, it's a lot easier when you're in the classroom and I can go around from computer to computer to like just help you. I wish this Zoom let me do that too, or I could just show it to you, but yeah. All right, so I'm just gonna move my flower around as you guys are playing around with placing your object to wherever you want it. So I'm gonna just rotate it a little bit. You can add it onto your side of your ear if you wanted to. And just make it a little cute accessory. Oop. Oh no, I'm moving the face. Or you can just, I think I'm just gonna add it. Let's see if we can do this. Yeah, I'm gonna have it just literally coming out of my eye. So here's the thing. You can have as many 3D objects as you want in your scene, as long as the space permits. There's no limit on the amount of like 3D objects you can add number-wise. It's again, just a matter of the size of the project that you want to keep under 4 megabytes. So if I want to, I can just right click on that file and I can duplicate that flower. And then I can just have a second one if I wanted to. So how's it going with you guys? Are you able to see anything that's popping up on your preview? Hold on, let's see.
I was just commenting that I like the flowers. It's really good. I love that.
I know it's a little creepy, but it works. And you can see the tracking, it's not jittering or anything. And I'm telling you, I've worked with creating AR through like Unity or like different kinds of platforms. And Lens Studio, in my opinion, has the best tracking. There's barely any jittering happening. It can directly track my eyeballs. It's really well done. Okay. So how are you guys able to see your objects wherever you have it tracked onto your face yet, or how's it going?
Emma's got hers, that's great. I have mine too. I was gonna try to take a screenshot and share it, but it looks really ridiculous. So
I think the point is to be a little ridiculous with it, I think. I mean, I like put flowers in my eyes. The other like fun thing about these is that it just like to not take it so seriously when you're creating these filters. It'll just make it funner. So I'm actually going to duplicate one of the flowers again, and hold on. I wish that Zoom allowed you to add your own filters to your camera. I know they have some, but yeah.
Yeah, I was actually curious about that. Like, can you get some of these custom filters into Zoom? Because I know you can do the snap camera, but is it just limited?
Sadly, oh, and there you go. So this happens sometimes. My Lens Studio just crashed. I think I was just, when I'm sharing my screen and working with Lens Studio was just too much for my computer to handle. Sadly, Zoom doesn't allow you to add your custom AR filters, no. But you can freely use it on Lens, on Snapchat. I think if you wanted to make something for Instagram, for example, obviously you can't use Lens Studio because they're competitors, but Facebook and Instagram have their own software called Spark AR, where you can also create some of this stuff. It's also good, but I just don't think it's as user-friendly as Lens Studio is. So I'm just opening my project again since this happened. Let me see if there's anything I can quit out of, but I don't think so. So guys, I'm actually gonna go over this. Yeah, I'm gonna just rebuild it really quickly again. In case you missed any of the steps, you can watch me do it, just as a reminder. It gets easier with practice. With like any software, it's like a language that you learn. So like the more you practice, the easier it'll become. But the first thing I'm doing is adding my files to my resource. So just going in and adding my FBX. And then I'm gonna go in and add my, I think I had some pretty crazier looking 3D objects in here too. This is one that my brother sent me. He's a really huge Naruto fan, if any of you guys are into anime. Okay, so I have my 3D objects. And then under object panel, I'm just saying head binding. And then automatically, it should have your selections right there. And then drag and drop your 3D object that's parented under head binding. It's obviously not appearing. So that just means that it's not placed where I need it to be. There you go. So I'm just gonna place it. Maybe I just need it here. And I'm just gonna rotate. So obviously a lot of these 3D objects that we're using, they're not necessarily meant for face filters. You can like go into your, go into all those like libraries online from Sketchfab or Google Poly and find different objects that you really like and then just create a super custom filter. And I'm just seeing the chat is going, let's see. Maggie says she can't see her lenses. Okay, so yeah, let's publish it. Again, there's two ways of going about this. When you send it to your lens, it just sends it to your device. It's not gonna like publish it online. It's just like trying to show you what it looks like on your phone. So what you wanna do when you're done is go into File and go under Publish Lens. So again, File, Publish Lens. Okay, and then name your lens whatever you want it to be, however you want it to appear. You can add the lens preview and a little image here if you want to, it's optional. It gives you like the size. Make sure if you just want it on your front camera or rear camera or both. Spectacles is like the Snapchat glasses. They make AR stuff for those now, but you don't have to have that selected. And then hint is actually kind of a really nice thing to add. So if your either AR piece needs to be triggered by like a facial expression or something like that, this like gives you a little writing when you open the filter. It just tells you like smile, and so it like directs people on how to like trigger the AR to come on. In this case, we're not triggering with anything, so I'm not gonna have that. And then you just click submit. And it usually takes like a few minutes. You're submitting a new lens. And again, you can add lens tags so that people can discover it. You can have the scan triggers, which is, in our case, it's just a person. And we're just gonna have it open for public. And then you just submit it. And then you wait a few minutes, you'll get an email. And you should be good. Yep, mine is already published. So you'll get an email that looks like this. Hold on, let me stop sharing my screen so you can see. It just says your lens is ready. Oh, sad you can't see. But it just basically gives you a link to your lens, and it also gives you a little snap code. And the snap code is pretty much just that, which is their version of a QR code. And you can send that, just like any QR codes works, you can send that to anyone you want. And when they scan it through their Snapchat, like through their Snapchat's camera, the lens will automatically load into their account, and then they'll be able to see what you're showing. So then you launch your lens, and mine is working. There you go. So we can go over that really quickly again, but it's pretty straightforward. No like little setting, not like any complicated settings that will ruin the filter that you've created. I'm just looking at Kate's screenshot that she sent. But yeah, any further questions, guys? And any error messages that you might hit, or has everyone been able to successfully see one of the filters through your phone? Oh, I love that, Kate. Your screenshot's funny. Emma, that looks awesome.
Did you say, do we get an email? You said from Snap. Okay.
Yeah, it sends you an email when the lens is ready. The other thing is, quickly gonna share my screen with you guys again. You can always go into your lenses, which you'll find right here. Hold on. So in Lens Studio, in the upper right corner, you'll see My Lenses. It's written right there. You can always click on that, or you can literally just go to Snapchat's website and you'll have your account logged in. And then it'll show all the lenses that you have public. So I can see the one that I published, red, is right here. And I can click on that. And I have the snap code right there. So the snap code, I can download it if I want to, and then send it to whoever I want, so that they can just scan it as a QR code and then launch it on their phone. But the easiest way to do it, I think, is when you publish it, you get the email and it automatically has a link that you just click on and it appears on your phone. And also when you have the lens selected, hold on. I just have to launch it again. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can show you guys. when I have the lens selected, it says, there's an option that says send to friends right there. So I can click on that and send it to whoever is online. Or is there a way to see how many people use your Snap? Yes, totally. So when you go into your, as I said, there's a lot of artists who like do this, like they do it for a living. I don't know how they make money off of it personally, but they just make these filters, and then there's a way to see your insights. So let me share my screen. So you can see under my lenses on Snap's website, I have my insights right here, like the total plays. You can, there's like the last 7 days, or you can say all time. So the reason why I have these numbers so high is because I did like a whole Snapchat lens project for another artist for their work. But yeah, you can totally see how many people saw it and how many people shared it. You can click on like a specific one. Does it give you, oh, let's go to ones that have been used. And then when you click on that specific filter, you'll see how many people actually experienced it. So yeah, I personally think even if you don't have it open for public, it's just such a fun way, like say it's your friend's birthday night out, and you can just make a cute little filter for them and then like take selfies with it. You know, even like for stuff like that, I think it's awesome. If you're making any kind of like artwork, it's just like a nice sort of, if you're like, say you're draw or you paint, you can overlay animations through AR with it. There's like a lot of different creative uses for it if you're just using Lens Studio. And again, I'm gonna share my screen. Just to quickly go over, I show you guys the basics of tracking, but that's pretty much how any kind of part of your body that you're trying to track onto, it's always sort of the same thing you follow. Under your objects panel, you click the little plus sign, and again, over right here. So you have like the cat tracking, dog tracking, hand tracking, full body tracking. So let's just click on full body, because that one's a little crazy. And I'm actually going to right here. Let's see, there should be a video of someone. So you see how in the preview, it's tracking every single sort of body part that you have right here. And the reason why you have those gray images there is right now, if you look on the objects panel right here, under every single body part, it just has this little object tracking asset. And right now it just has image locked onto it. But obviously you can make this replace the image with anything you want, whether it be something 3D or another image. So I can also, let's just go back. The full body one is going to be a little tough to show you this second, but what I'm actually going to do is just show you a really simple hand tracking. I'm sorry for the sound if you're hearing it. And I'm actually just going to go back to my webcam. And I'm going to get rid of hand binding really quickly. So right now, I just added the hand tracking, right? And so this is just what it's going to show me, because I have a blank image there. So under hand tracking, I'm just going to click right here where it says object tracking. And in the inspector panel, you can see there's an image component, which is why this is popping up. So if I want to add a specific image to that, I can just go into texture and say, okay, and add any image I want there. Okay, that's just changing from right here. Let's say I want to add a 3D object. Then I have to add component. And it says render mesh visual right here. You add that. And then you just choose your mesh, which is your 3D object. So say that's what I want to pick. Or, oh my God, what is that? Let's just pick a simple circle maybe. Or, hold on. I just need to add a 3D object there. Since my Lens Studio crashed, I had to relaunch everything, so I have to add everything in again. All right, let's do this one more time. So now I have my flower. There you go. I'm just gonna place it however, where I wanted on my hand. So that's pretty much it. And then if I obviously want a material on there. So I just need to map the material. And this is something I showed you before, that's why I'm kind of going a little quickly, but under my 3D objects folder, I just clicked on its material and I'm just selecting the texture file like I did earlier. So now I have it tracked onto my hand. Kind of see it.
So I accidentally like deleted the little sphere that says material.
Uh-huh.
How do I like make a new one?
Sure, that's a great question in case it happens. Let's see. All right, I'm just quickly gonna change my person. So all you need to do is under your resources, click the little plus sign and you can just type in material. And when you type in material, you have all these different little purple spheres come up, I guess. And so these are all the different sorts of materials that you can add. Like if you want something that looks gold or something that looks like glass, or if you want something that's matte, we're just gonna go with a simple PBR or just PBR for the sake of just adding color or adding like a basic texture file. So I'm just gonna say PBR. And you can see how it appeared right there. And then next thing you do, if you're just working with color, again, you have it selected on your resources. You can just change it to whatever you need. Or if you want to add a texture file, right under texture here, you click there and then find the specific file you want. And then that's it. You have your material ready.
Thank you.
And then you just assign it to your 3D model. So when I have the flower selected, or actually, so when you have the flower selected, you just want to make sure that you have that material assigned. So we just created this PBR. And so that's how the flower gets its color. But yeah, That's pretty much a very simple way of doing it. So if you guys have pets around, I urge you to try the one that's meant for them. It's so well done, honestly. It's so funny. Again, it's very simple. You just click onto object tracking, say you want to do it for cats. Just make sure that whatever tracking you had selected before is either deleted or unselected so that it doesn't get in the way. And then it's just a matter of adding whatever component you want. Like the way I showed you.
Try this on my cat.
Yeah. Let's see, any more questions? Oh, I'll take a look at Olivia's.
So a quick note to everybody.
That's amazing.
Please,
Gemini.
Please send me like, you know, when the spot to upload these. I'd love it. Like if you have like, if you can take a video capture of it, that would be great to document what you did. A screenshot's fine too. If you can successfully get it published, that would also be great. And you can send me the info for that too. But yeah, I want to see what everybody made. I'm still waiting for my confirmation email because I just realized that I didn't.
Yeah, so when you're first publishing, it sometimes takes longer because I just think they want to make sure you're not like doing something weird. It gets faster as you publish more lenses and then like you have like a background with their website. Again, the easiest way to share it is either just sending that snap code to your friends or send it to Kate or just however you want it to be delivered to you. And just one last thing to show you guys. Again, like we went from like scratch to create these, but you can always go through the templates as you're learning and it'll make things a lot easier for you. So like, for example, I was working on creating the series for this artist where we had like hand segmentation going on. So I worked off of this template that they have because I didn't know what scripts to write to be able to have that interaction. Let's just have it load.
Have you had to do any like sort of bespoke like coding or putting in any scripts really for any years?
For some of them, yeah, it depends on how customizable you want it. Like for something like this, for example, I just want to make sure my screen was shared. So this is like a script that it's pre-written that recognizes your hand so that you have this plane flying around it. We have to do a script for this interactive sound piece where you would basically trigger the sound, these sounds around you depending on your like joint movements. So there's like scripts that you can add on to it and make it like super customizable. But then they also have a lot of helper scripts that like lets you do this. Oh yeah, and this is the other thing. So this is just from like the template. And you pretty much just open these templates up and within the objects panel, it's a matter of you changing the 3D objects that are already there to whatever you want it to be. So you can make some pretty crazy custom creations with this. Again, like the only downside is that it's not your own app. It's just, it has to be through Snapchat. And if you only like working with 2D stuff, there's totally like tons of stuff to do with 2D animation, interactions. Yeah. I mean, if we had more time, I'd love to like dive in deeper and show you guys all the different things that are in here. Or as you guys like learn more and more about 3D, you can get into like particle systems, which is pretty much, they have their own code to create particles, which is any sort of 3D look that 3D object that you want it to be sort of organic and unpredictable looking, whether it be like smoke or rain or something like that. That's pretty much created through particles. And Snap has its own particle systems that you can just use. So you see it like creates this rain effect, but then it has like snow and among other things. But yeah. That's pretty much like closing to the end of it, guys. I hope you kind of got an idea of like a very basic foundational level of creating these lenses. Again, like the sort of the steps that I showed you, it's pretty much the same for almost all of the trackings. And if it gets confusing, you can always just work off of a template. The reason why I like had you guys work from scratch is just so that, you know, you have a better understanding of how the software actually works. But that's pretty much it. That's you. I hope all of you guys managed to create a filter after this workshop. Like this was pretty fun. Yeah.
Yeah, so the next part of this is like, so I want to see the documentation you guys did from today. Like, obviously you saw mine, it was totally brilliant and beautiful. But no, it doesn't really matter what it looks like, as long as it's functional, right? But then you also have an assignment coming up where you're using Snap to like, you know, essentially your final project, like making something that like is actually conceptually really rich and like utilizes maybe some of these other things that we went over. So maybe just kind of look through some of the templates, start thinking a little bit about what's interesting to you. And then we'll kind of talk. You've got some time before that's due, but just kind of start thinking about it now. What's interesting to you and what you might want to kind of push further on with some of this. But yeah, this is really great. Thanks so much, Zeynep, for showing us.
Of course. I'm just putting my email in the chat as well in case you guys had any further questions. But again, please like feel free to work through those templates. Like that's how I learned to use this software, is just using those templates until I was like confident enough to just work off of projects on my own. But they make it super, super easy to learn. And then the other thing is, if you ever get lost, YouTube is almost always your savior for any 3D work that you're doing. Someone will have a tutorial on it, hopefully. But with Lens, there's a lot, they actually have a lot of good tutorials they made themselves on their channel as well. Also, I don't work for Snapchat. I really like, I wish they paid me to do this, but no, they haven't. And I'm like speaking from the heart when I say I really like this software. So that's why I'm just like recommending it to you guys. But yeah.
Cool. I know some of you have to go because it's into class, but real quick, do you have any, like, what artists would you recommend they look at? Like, I know they've got some readings coming up that I think are I should double check this, but I think they're primarily doing like Instagram filters, but is there anybody on the Snap side that's doing stuff that you find really impressive?
Yeah, so here's the Lens Studio has a whole residency program if you wanted to discover artists on their site. I'm just going to quickly link that too. So,
and also if anybody else has any questions, feel free.
Yeah, so here I just put down a link that says, that links you to like the Lens creators. And if you just click on that, you'll see all these profiles of artists who've been making these crazy, crazy filters. That'll be the easiest way for you to find artists who are specifically working with Snap. If you want more recommendations on people who are just working with AR, I can definitely send that as an email, but just someone to look into is probably Sutu. I think his website is Sutu Eats Flies.
That sounds right. I think it's that, yeah.
Sutu would probably be a good person. And then other people, Nancy. Nancy, she's pretty big in the AR game.
Actually, some of you came to her talk last semester, I think. She came and joined us for Senior Studios. I think some of you were there for that. Yeah, Nancy's great.
Yeah, she's a veteran. We can say that for like AR stuff.
Yeah.
And there's Zenka, who's also great. But yeah.
Zenka, cool. I'm gonna look that up. Awesome, cool. Well, thanks so much, Zeynep. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Yeah, this was really, really fun. I hope to see like everyone's filters once you have it ready. And yeah, this was awesome.
Yeah, I'll be sure to share with you like everything everybody makes for this, and then I'll share the final projects with you too, because I know they'll be brilliant. So
guys, just make it as silly as you need it to be. Honestly, that's what this Lens Studio is great for.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, everybody.